Hi, I'm Dr. Daviso, and I put this IEP overview together as part of my series, the IEP from start to finish. I designed this presentation for people who are just being introduced to the field or for general educators who just want a nice review of what the IEP entails so you can see what it looks like and what the expectations are from special ed, general ed, and other related service providers. So let's jump right in and then let's look at the form itself. The form itself I was able to get off of the Ohio Department of Education's website. The website will be listed on LiveBinder. All the Ohio required and optional forms are available for you to download, and most of them are in PDF form and are dynamic, and you can type within them. As you can see, here's the cover page to the individualized educational program. It contains just general information on the child, on the parent, and a checklist of all the different areas that need to be filled out. It has timelines for the IEP as well as when the meeting is actually going to be held or scheduled. So let's go into the 14 different parts of the IEP and look at the areas that you should probably concentrate on most. The first section is future planning. I do have another video set up just on this area alone. In future planning, it's going to be different for children that are in elementary school versus middle school versus high school. It's basically a statement or a short paragraph, and it should be linked to the child's evaluated team report, as well as any other data or documentation that remains critical to the child's education. Here, what we're looking at is what do we want to happen over the next year or so? What kind of goals do parents have for their children? And what are we working towards? This is simply an area of what is basically the theme of the IEP and what is the purpose for this plan we're going to be set in place. When we move on from future planning, we look at what's called special instructional factors. Now, for those of you who are going to be in special education, any area here that's marked yes must be addressed in the IEP. This includes if the child has a behavior which impedes his or her learning, definitely. Is English a second language for this student? Is the child visually or hearing impaired? We need to know that. Does the child have communication needs if they're deaf or having a hearing impairment? We're also looking at are there assistive technology needs or services required by that student? And does the student require any specially designed physical education? This would be called adapted physical education for our students. So if any of these areas are checked, they must be addressed later in the IEP under Section 6 or Section 7, which we'll discuss a little bit. All right, Section 3 is pretty general. It is the child's profile. And here we're just summarizing the child's strengths. We're looking at other concerns the parents might have. This is where you can put in additional information on child's interests, anything that's relevant medically, anything that could relate to the child's safety. This is a pretty open section. If you look at the annotations for this online, you can see there's a number of different approaches to filling this out. This is basically a place where you can put some additional information to back up your approach when it comes to making measurable goals and objectives. Okay, let's get into Section 4. Section 4 is post-secondary transition, and this begins for students in the state of Ohio at age 14. Now, what are we looking to do here? This is simply a statement of transition service needs focusing on the child's course of study. This means what types of coursework will the child need to take in high school that relates to their post-school goals. So if the child's interested in going on to, let's say, a 4-year college, they need to start taking those college prep courses. If they're planning on working, let's say, as an auto tech, maybe they're going to need to take coursework in career and technical education focused on automotive technology. Basically, just laying out a plan to see what's going to happen at high school and what course of study the student should follow. Along with this, is a summary of what's called age-appropriate transition assessments. For those of you in special education, and especially those teachers who are going to be working at the high school level, please see my video, Transition Assessment Made Easy. There are a lot of different approaches to this. It could be interviewing students, giving them formal, informal assessments to identify interests, to identify their strengths, which we can build on to make them more employable and more independent after they graduate. Once again, this starts at age 14, and there is a myriad of assessments out there that you can use. Make sure you check out my live binder if you want more information on this topic. We continue with post-secondary transition services in Section 5 of the IEP. And what I want to make sure you understand is these are the goals that are attained after graduation. And this is the heart of the plan to reach them within the IEP. There has to be a measurable post-secondary goal for education and training, meaning where are they going to continue their education after school. And you can see there are services that would be listed here on what types of services would help them maybe get into college, what types of service will help them get on-the-job training, and providing experiences that will help them reach that goal. So you have to do it for education and training. This also has to happen for employment, as well as independent living. For more detailed information on this section, please see the transition-focused IEP planning video I put together that goes into a very serious amount of detail when it comes to planning for each of these areas, and it will give you some additional tools to work with students and help them be more independent. All right, for general educators, this is the heart of the IEP, and I want to make sure you know exactly what you can get out of this, because you're going to have students in your class in inclusionary settings. So this is where we have measurable annual goals. What are the students working on in English language arts, in mathematics, their behavioral goals? And what you can expect to find here is the students' present levels of performance. Those are listed. You can find past testing, past performance, what students are currently able to do and what they're currently struggling to learn. And what we're looking at is making sure we focus on strengths and build from there. You'll also see measurable annual goals here. This is the goal the student has for the year in improving their area of academics, whichever one's chosen. We also have to list out the methods for measuring that progress. What are we going to use? Is it through testing, observation, checklists? We have to have a way of how are we going to measure this progress and report it. The IEP is further broken down into measurable objectives. And these are short-term objectives that might be met every 9 weeks, maybe every half year, depending on what the IEP team decides. These are what's measured in terms of progress. And this progress has to be reported. We have to document here how it's going to be reported. Is it through email? Is it going to be through notes home? Whatever it might be. And how often progress is reported to parents. The law states that students with disabilities have to have their progress reported to parents as many times as the general education population has this done. So that means if your school does interim reports are also conducted on IEP goals and objectives for our students. For a much more detailed information on this, please see my Writing Measurable Goals and Objectives. This goes into specific detail on how to create these goals and how to make sure they're measurable and they're SMART, meaning they're attainable for the student. Section 7, this is the specifically designed or specially designed instruction that includes related services, assistive technology, any additional modifications made to the curriculum. What support is there for school personnel? What assistance are they going to get when providing these services? And services to support the student's medical needs. A lot of times this is the area where you do a lot of team building. This is where the speech therapist, occupational, physical therapists come together and work out related services, and the instruction that's going to be provided. Section 8 focuses on transportation as a related service. If the child has any transportation needs or anything that needs to be highlighted, this is where you're going to see it. If the child needs modifications or accommodations for transportation, this is where it's going to be checked off. And if the child needs transportation to and from provider services. This is a good one to talk if you're a special educator. You're going to be doing a lot with transportation and making sure you have good communication with those that are providing it to your student. For my general educators out there, in the IEP, non-academic and extracurricular activities are also covered within the IEP process. So I want to make sure you understand, all means all. If all fourth graders are going to the zoo for a field trip, that means all the students in the fourth grade will attend. This includes students with disabilities. Just because a couple of students may use wheelchairs for mobility, that doesn't mean, oh, you know what? We're not going to take them because they require special assistance. Make sure your students are included in all academic and non-academic events within your school system. Section 10 is just general factors. They go through and look at the IEP team. Did they consider the strength of the child, the concerns of the parents, the results of the initial or most recent evaluation of the child, and as appropriate, did they look at state and district-wide assessments or any academic, developmental, or functional needs of the child? This is also an area where they'll look at to see if extended school year services are necessary. Extended school year doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go to school all summer. It's usually a 6-week program, sometimes even a half a day, and it's designed for students to make sure they don't lose academic progress over the summer. It's not always guaranteed. Section 11 should be familiar to all of my students, the least restrictive environment. And when it comes to the least restrictive environment, we have to make sure, does the child attend the school that he or she would normally attend? And does the child receive all special education services with their non-disabled peers? We're hoping for as much inclusion as possible. Remember, special education is a service, not necessarily a place. I know a lot of us, when we think of special education, we think of resource rooms, we think of separate services. These are services that are provided in the inclusionary classroom. And you can see the least restrictive environment starts with regular education and goes all the way down to students that are educated at home. It's a continuum of services. Section 12, I won't spend too much time on because it basically just categorizes all the statewide and district testing that student is going to participate in. This just gives some extra information so we know what accommodations and modifications might need to be made. And last but not least, Section 13 and 14 looks at how the meeting was held. Was it face-to-face, video conference? Was it a telephone call? Or did we organize it another way? Section 14 includes the signature page. Parents would then receive a copy of the IEP, as well as every other member of the IEP team should have a copy available to them if they're going to be providing services. And generally, that's it. I hope this was a helpful overview to give you an idea of what is required for writing an IEP. As general educators, please do not be afraid to ask questions of intervention specialists. You guys can offer a ton to our students. We love working with you. If you have any questions, check the live binder, and if you're curious, continue watching some of the videos. Hopefully it'll help you out. Have a great day and good luck.